Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to day 5 in palette week, where every single day for what should have been 7 straight days, but we skipped yesterday because I was tired. And I wasn't fully prepared, but we are continuing on. We just missed one day and we still have today's video plus 2 more in palette week, so 7 days of palette videos. And I'm really excited because in today's video I'm going to be reflecting on the 50 eyeshadow palettes that I either purchased last year or were sent to me. The majority of them I did purchase myself, and I'm gonna let you know what's still in my collection, what has gone completely neglected and unused this year, and the palettes that have gotten use and love. And I think maybe the results will shock you, maybe they won't, but there are over half the palettes are either decluttered or haven't used this year. I will say this year has been a little bit interesting just because there was a good chunk of time where I really wasn't reaching for makeup at all, which is not my typical situation. But I only have used 22 out of the 50 palettes that I purchased last year. And some of the top palettes that I ranked top last year haven't been used. So we're gonna get into all of it. If you're interested, stay tuned. First, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel and you like palette themed content, project panning, or just hanging out and chit-chatting about makeup, that is what we do over on this channel. So I hope you'll consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. All right, I'm gonna scoot over slightly so I can just share with you the 8 eyeshadow palettes that I have already decluttered. And the majority of these were ranked low. My lowest ranked palette last year was the Prada Quad. Prada did send this to me, which I was extremely grateful for, but the color story isn't something that really spoke to me. So I passed this along to a friend that is gonna get more use out of it than me, but that was my lowest ranked. And then I had the 3 Oden's Eye palettes from the Oden's Eye Legendary Diversa Round 2 collab. I have just not been impressed with Oden's Eye quality for quite a while at this point in time, and this collection unfortunately was no exception. I don't believe I purchased an Oden's Eye palette since. I've definitely been tempted, but I just feel like it's a bit of a waste of my money because I feel like their quality is just lacking. So those 3 palettes, I've decluttered 2. I still have the oh my gosh, I believe it's a Nuts palette, but I do plan to declutter that at the end of this year. I also decluttered the Dieverune Moth and Moon palette as well as the Dieverune Gloomy Gardens palette. I really enjoy Diverune's special shades, but their matte shadows specifically were really lacking in quality for me. So I decided to pass those palettes along, as well as the NARS Afterglow palette. I have been on a NARS eyeshadow kick, but all NARS eyeshadow palettes pretty much do look the same, and a lot of them have more of like the pinky rosy undertone, which I just prefer like a brown in, like, whether it be cool tone, warm tone, neutral. I just prefer a brown. So I ended up decluttering that one. And then the last one that I ended up decluttering was the Unearthly Heather Austin Resurgence palette. I thought this was a beautiful palette. It just wasn't my perfect color story. And so I wanted to pass this along to someone who would get more use out of it than I would. So then of the 42 eyeshadow palettes that are still in my collection from those 50, I have a completely 50-50 split. I have reached for 21 of them, and 21 of them have not been used and are completely unused and neglected in my collection. So we're gonna jump into the palettes that I have not used this year that I bought last year. I'm gonna go in lowest order of rank as I talk about my unused palettes. So I did rank the It's Belle Under the Full Moon pretty low last year. I don't actually think It's Belle is still a brand anymore. I had purchased one of their all shimmer palettes prior to purchasing this palette, and I really liked their all shimmer palette. So then I purchased this, and I was really excited about this palette, but I again feel like the matte quality in this is really, really lacking, and really the only 2 shadows that I like this palette for are the shade Full Moon and Moonglade. I also struggled to declutter this palette because there is a shadow in here that shade name is August 1st, and that's my daughter's birthday. So there's that. I don't know that this is gonna make it through a declutter though this year. I would be curious if this would be something that I could easily depot, like the 3 shades that I want to keep from here, but I'm just not really inspired by the quality in this, and therefore it's just not a palette that I think to reach for. and I haven't reached for it this year. Then I have both the Kaleidos Venus Trap and Cold Brew quads. They actually, well, C Beauty Mall sent these to me at the end of last year, so I had reached for them like towards the end of last year to test them out. So I have the Cold Brew quad, which honestly I feel like could easily get a ton of use out of me. This is like right up my alley in terms of what I've been loving this year. I just haven't been reaching for makeup all that much. So there's that. And then I also have the Venus Trap, which is a little bit more cool toned than I typically like. And by that, I mean, these are more like gray shadows, which I don't typically love grays. So I can absolutely see this one getting decluttered by the end of this year, especially because I haven't reached for this at all. Okay, I feel like you guys can't see my hair and I was feeling like we were too zoomed in. Anyway, then I have the BBB Melted Mattes eyeshadow palette. I ranked this one lower last year just because I don't typically reach for an all matte palette. And lo and behold, we're here this year and I haven't reached for this at all. I did pull this out in the summertime to get use out of it, and that is when I completely hit my halt in my makeup usage, and I went like 6 weeks with barely wearing no makeup, at least 6 weeks barely wearing no makeup at all. I do really enjoy BBB's matte quality. This is not like, I'm not using this because of the quality. I actually was starting to flip through my last 3 months of palette usage, and it's been like, any new palette to my collection I'm using, because I'm obviously trying to test and try those before the end of the year. And then I have like my Danessa Myricks Groundworks and my Rowan quad, but I have not really been reaching into my previous eyeshadow collection at all the last several months, so that makes it a little bit hard. This is not something I plan to declutter at all, and I'm hoping, even if this doesn't get used next year, hopefully next year I'm doing my makeup more and this does get some use. Then I have my Lethal Cosmetics Midnight Serenade palette. This palette I was so excited for last year, and this one, again, some of the quality in this, this went on fine. It just didn't have like the lasting power I was looking for. I ended up wearing this to work a couple of days, and I just felt like by the end of the day, some of the special shades, like the shade Enchantress, had like completely worn off my eyes, which was a little bit disappointing. I do still think this is a beautiful palette. There's some really lovely shades in here. This is not something that I want to declutter. I am also interested in some of Lethal's new releases. I haven't purchased from Lethal actually since buying this palette. This is something that I'm kind of sad I haven't reached for yet, and it would be nice to kind of pull this one out for the fall time, just because this really does kind of give me fall vibes. So maybe still I'll get some use out of this before the end of the year. Then I have two Alter Ego palettes. They did send both of these to me. These were something that I was testing towards the end of last year, so that could play a bit of a role in it. I have the Sundown palette, which is a dupe to the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. And actually, I do plan to declutter my Dream. Maybe I will end up keeping this one. Then I would still have the Color Story. I really do like some of the like sparkly shadows in here. I actually think Alter Ego has an incredible eyeshadow formula, especially considering that they keep their palettes like $25 and under. You get a mirror, all of their shadows are magnetized, and I really do love Alter Ego. I just have not reached for this or the Misthaven palette, which I believe is a dupe to the not the Natasha Denona, the Huda Beauty Grunge palette. Again, I was testing and trying this at the beginning of last year, so I wasn't like itching to bust this out at the beginning of this year, and this definitely screams more like cool toned weather to me, so perhaps this is something I will still reach for by the end of this year. Who's to say? I again really do like some of the twinkly shadows in here, but I haven't reached for this one yet this year. Then I have my Danessa Myricks Blooming palette. This I purchased because I am obsessed with the Danessa Myricks Groundworks palette. I use that every single day I do my brows pretty much. My Groundworks has gotten so much use, and last year I was dyeing my hair red, so I thought the Blooming palette would just be like a good addition to my collection, and I just do not find myself itching to reach for this one like I do my Groundworks. I do actually think this shade could be another really beautiful shade for my brows, especially now that I'm not really dyeing my hair red. I don't think that this one has, I'm not dyeing my hair red, but it still always has like a bit of warmth to it. It makes me sad that I really haven't reached for this one. I really should dig into this, but I just haven't. All right, the next few I feel like I did get towards the end of last year, which in order for me to like come on and like rank or give my full thoughts on a palette, I do have to no pan left behind it, meaning use every single shade in the palette before I consider it like officially ready to test. So some of these I got towards the end of last year, and then I just like, obviously I like just worked my way through a palette, so I want to work my way through other things. So some of it could be that, but I have the Nomad Cosmetics Chicago Speakeasy palette. I actually really enjoyed this. I have kind of been a harsh critic of Nomad in the past. I don't think they have the most incredible formula personally, and still I don't think like they have the top eyeshadow formula, but I do love their theming, and I actually had pretty good luck with this palette. I do like all of the middle like special shimmer shadows. The mattes I had good luck with. It's not like the most exciting color story, but sometimes in the winter I do like a mauvey dusty purple look. Not as much lately, but I do. And so I have that in here, but then I have like warm browns as well as some more like neutral browns as well, and then we have some fun pops of green. Still haven't reached for this one this year, but I did enjoy that one. Then we have Huda Icy, again, came out at the end of last year. I actually really enjoyed playing with this one. Not my favorite Huda Large palette by any means, but I still enjoyed some of the looks that I created with this. This is something I could absolutely see myself still pulling out like in December, because this very much screams icy Minnesota weather, but I haven't reached for this one yet this year. Then I have the Blend Bunny Surge, which I think if I had been doing my makeup this summer, I absolutely would have gotten a lot more use out of this one. This one did take me a long time to work my way through last year, and I will say I've definitely, my comfort this year has been less colorful eyeshadow, so this just is not been something that is even like a thought as a first reach. I still love this eyeshadow palette. This is not something I'm considering decluttering by any means. I'm very happy to have this in my collection, but as I haven't been doing my makeup as much this year, and certainly not reaching for color nearly as much as I have in the last couple years, this just unfortunately has not gotten used. Then I have my Cosmic Beauty Muse palette, which I maybe purchased at the end of 2023 or very beginning of 2024. Didn't test it till 2024, so it was included in last year's year-end palette ranking. I really enjoyed this, and there's definitely some shadows in here that I still think will be really pretty for the winter, such as Antique and Ambient. So I am still hoping that perhaps this will get some use before the year's end, but as of this moment, this hasn't. Same thing with Enchanted Autumn. Again, this came out towards the end of 2024. I haven't reached for this one this year, but I definitely can see myself at least creating 1 to 2 looks with this before the end of the year, because I feel like the shade Libra, this really, really beautiful purple, is such a beautiful shade for the winter time. So I am still thinking this will at least get a use. All right, sadly, I also have the Divination palette from Blend Bunny. I think some of these larger palettes sometimes just feel a little bit intimidating, but this also has a beautiful row of neutrals, so I easily could do like a work appropriate look with that. I've been definitely digging more neutrals this year. I was really hoping to reach into some of these like brighter colors this summer, and obviously that didn't happen. This is another one of those that I'm not considering decluttering. I just really haven't gotten around to this one, and this one makes me sad. All right, this next one I definitely think will get used before the end of the year. It's the Nomad Polar Express. This released towards the very end of last year. I loved this one. This is something that I definitely can create work appropriate looks with too, even having fun with this blue for work. So this is something that will still get used. Again, this is just like I reached for this at the end of last year, so then, you know. Then I have my Glaminatrix Barely Basic palette. I actually had this one sitting on my desk because this is something that I am trying to get use out of. Even on a day that I'm going to work, I can definitely create a look with this, and it's been sitting out on my desk just itching to get used. Like, I've intentionally put it there to use it, so I am still hopeful this will get some use, but as of this moment, it hasn't. Same thing goes for my Cosmic Beauty Cool Trills palette, although I do have faith that I will reach for this one in the winter. It just screams more cold weather to me, but yeah, definitely plan to pull this one out still this year. All right, and then the last 4 that have gone unused this year are all in my top 10 ranked of last year, which is quite sad. The first is the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm. I'm actually shocked that I haven't reached for this. This is something, if I was doing my makeup towards the latter half of the summer, I absolutely would have reached for this. This is something that also I could just stick on my desk because I can easily do something for work with this palette. This is one of my top Natasha palettes in my collection, so I am actually quite sad that I haven't reached for this. And then I have the Fantasy Cosmetica Harvest of Souls. This is something that launched towards the end of last year. I think this is beautiful. I haven't yet reached for it this spooky season, and I know Halloween is just a couple of days away, so that makes me sad, but this is something that even past spooky season, I can still reach for this. I love this quad of blues, like do something with the blues for the winter. There's also some really beautiful purples, and I'm still confident that this will get some use before the end of the year. We have the Undergrowth palette from Cosmic Beauty, which ranked 4th last year. This is something, again, I haven't, it's hard because I wasn't doing a ton of makeup at the beginning of September either, so I feel like I missed quite a good chunk of fall as well in terms of just like being able to do my makeup or like getting looks out. And this isn't necessarily a palette that I'd be reaching into on work days. And then I feel like I've purchased so many palettes lately that on weekends when I'm filming, I'm testing and trying other palettes. So unfortunately just hasn't gotten use. There are so many beautiful shadows in here. Like this, it can't go a whole year without getting used. We've got to find time to reach for this. And then finally, this ranked 3rd last year. This is something I bought, I think again, maybe at the end of 2023 or beginning of 2024 and didn't test until 2024. It's the Unearthly Sorcerer's Smoke palette. This is such a beautiful palette. This is something that I could easily pull out and create a work appropriate look with. I should just put this on my desk. There's also just some really beautiful sparkles and duochromes and just beautiful special shadows in here that I could easily reach for on the weekend and just feel so pretty in. So we gotta find a time to reach for this too. All right, moving on to the 21 eyeshadow palettes out of my list of 50 that I actually have reached for this year. I don't have my exact uses on each of these, but we're just gonna go along and I'll tell you if I can even remember reaching for some of these. So up first, I have the MAC Encrypted Kryptonite. This was my lowest ranked of all of the palettes that I've used that I bought this last year. Anyway, this one actually ranked below the Unearthly Heather Austin palette, which I ended up decluttering, and ranked below quite a few other palettes that haven't gotten used this year. I kept this around because the reason I bought this palette is for the shade Satin Taupe. A MAC single is like, I swear it's like in the mid 20s to purchase a shade, but this palette of 6 was $35. So I ended up buying this, and this actually is very easy just for day-to-day looks. It's not the most exciting palette, but I do still really enjoy having this in my collection. Because it's not the most exciting, I ranked it low, but I'm obviously still finding time to reach for this. And this is definitely a lot more my vibe this year, just keeping things simple and less colorful. So I've reached for that. Next lowest rank that I have reached for is my Lawless, the Dreamy Dozen. I actually have completed this No Pan Left Behind this year, and I think I've reached for this 3 or 4 total times. I actually really enjoyed my time like jumping back into this palette. I'm so glad that I found time to use this No Pan Left Behind. This is something that Lawless actually did send to me last year that I almost didn't keep, but I ended up keeping it. I'm so glad that I did because this was my vibe this year. Like this was speaking to my eyeshadow soul, and I absolutely am so glad that I have this. Then I have the Bella Beauté Bar Dead Roses palette. This just isn't my color story. That's why I ranked this one a little bit lower last year, but I actually did end up reaching for this, I think at least 3 or 4 times if I'm remembering correctly. I think they were all in February, and I was really trying to get use out of this palette. And when I dipped back into it this year, when I wasn't necessarily trying to complete this No Pan Left Behind, but I was reaching into a shade or two, I really did enjoy it that way. There's some very, very, very beautiful shadows throughout this palette. And while some of the multi-chromes aren't my absolute favorite, I still love Bella Beauté Bar's palettes, and I've enjoyed the few times I've reached for this year. Then we had my Terra Moon's Space Chemistry palette. Not exactly sure how many times I've reached into this year, but I think it's been a decent amount. I ranked this lower last year because I was really disappointed in the quality overall. The 2 mattes like should have just not even been included. They're so powdery. They don't blend well. They do not look good on the eyes. And then the wear time of the shimmers just all over the lid just wasn't there for me. I do still love this palette though, because there's some beautiful shades that I do enjoy reaching for. Light Particle is such a beautiful yellow on the inner corner. Also Moonwater is this really beautiful like silvery greenish sort of shade, greenish blue. I don't know, I just think that's one that's just like a shade I like right up my alley. I even like Atmosphere and Solarium is really, really beautiful. So for a companion palette, I still enjoy having this. I think I've reached for this, I want to say I was like actually close to like 9 times if I'm remembering earlier this year. So I think I've reached for this actually a decent amount. Still not my favorite, but I'm keeping it. Then I have my Alter Ego Daylight palette, which I have reached for a couple of times. This is inspired by the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. And this is just such an easy palette as like a companion palette with something like the Space Chemistry. If I just want to create like kind of a grounded, cooler toned matte look or even neutral matte look, and then go in with one of my special indie shadows. I really enjoyed this palette for that. Again, I do really like Alter Ego's quality. They did send this one to me. But I have used this one this year. Next up, I have the Natasha Denona Golden palette, and this kind of ranked middle of the pack last year. If I were to rank this again this year, this would rank so much higher. I reached for this a ton this year. I did end up no pan left behinding this, and this was just this is just like what worked for me this year. I liked something less colorful, more brown, kind of more boring, but just like simple and just kind of made me feel pretty. I do like a lot of the like metallics or the lid toppers in here, and then I just feel like these browns are just like the perfect neutral / warm browns, and I just really enjoyed this. I think I reached for this at least 5 or 6 times so far this year, so definitely this one would rank even higher this year. I love having this palette in my collection, and I'm sure we will continue to see this one get used. I'm kind of surprised the Strange and Unusual was ranked above the Golden, because definitely if I were to rank this again, this one would rank just a little bit lower. It's one of the older palettes from Bella Beauté Bar. I will say the matte quality in this is not as good as I think a lot of the mattes are now with Bella Beauté Bar, but I still love my Bella Beauté Bar Shifty shadows. I can't remember, I think I've reached into this for the matte white a couple of times this year, and then possibly Witch Doctor, but if I haven't, I really should reach into that because that looks like such a fun red. I typically don't like reds, but I've been like itching to do something red. And then I think I've also reached for Sandworm this year because it's like one of those, again, just kind of like right up my alley, like right up my alley. Oh, I just love shadows like that. Freaking love shadows like that. So I have reached for Strange and Unusual. I did kind of make it my mission this year to make sure I was reaching into all of my Bella Beauté Bar palettes at least a couple of times, because it is my favorite brand of eyeshadow, and I think the only Bella Beauté Bar palette I didn't reach for this year was the Melted Mattes. And then speaking of, I also have my Angels of Illumination palette, which I finished testing in 2024, but I believe I bought in 2023. I actually really enjoyed this palette. Again, I'm a blue loving girly, so and I don't mind a companion palette. Again, I can reach into something like the Golden palette or even the Daylight for the mattes, and then just reach into a palette like this for 1 or 2 shadows. Moonlight and Gleam are some really, really beautiful kind of like blue brown or green brown shadows. I absolutely love those. Sunlight I also really like for like a golden green shifty shadow. And then I think I also reached into this palette earlier this year for the shade Glow, which is kind of random because I don't always reach for purples, but I still love having this palette in my collection. I think it's beautiful. And like the shade Starlight, ooh, we need to do something with Starlight this year before the year is up. Actually, that's a little bit different than I was remembering, but we should still do something with that. Anyway, I have reached for that one. Then I have my Bella Beauté Bar Realm of Fairies palette. I think I've only reached into this 1 or 2 times this year, although this definitely screams more winter just in terms of color story. I will say I do love blues, but if I were to rank this one again against the entire ranking of last year, I think I would actually rank this one lower. Like even Angels of Illumination, I personally just prefer more of the shadows in here. I don't know. It's not that I don't like this palette, I just feel like I get more use out of this one, therefore I would have ranked this one lower. There's still some absolutely beautiful shadows in here. The mattes in this perform really, really well. I just don't think I would rank this one the same if I were to rank it again, but I still have reached for that one this year. Then I have my Simply Posh Coastal, which I was so close to finishing this No Pan Left Behind and I still haven't so far this year, but I created one of my favorite looks that I've created the entire year using this palette. I honestly think if I were to rank this against like the list again, this one would rank even higher now in 2025. What I love about Simply Posh is when I first do a look, sometimes I feel like it's not like perfect, but then it sits on my eyes for like 30 minutes and I don't know if just like my eyelids like warm it up, but I love this palette. This shade right here, Serene, oh my gosh, or the shade Sunbathe, such a beautiful shifty like orange golden shadow for the summer. Just so beautiful. I'm really impressed with Simply Posh. I recently purchased the sister palette to this. I'm kind of sad I didn't get Black Cherry, and I'm kind of sad I didn't get the winter one last year. We'll see if they launch another winter one this year. I'm definitely interested in trying more from the brand, but so glad that I have this and already cannot wait to pull this back out next summer and create, again, just like I loved this fiery look that I did with the shade Sunbathe. I thought it was so pretty. Then I have my Danessa Myricks Groundworks palette, which is by far my most used palette last year and this year. I use this for my brows every single time I do my brows. I pretty much used up this entire shade last year, and this year I've been using this in my brows. I ranked this one not at the very top, although it is my most used, because it's just not like the most exciting. I'm really just using it mostly for my brows and not actually for like actual eyeshadow, but by far it's my most used, most useful tool, and I absolutely love this. All right, then I have my Unearthly Just a Taste palette. This launched towards the end of last year. I actually recently pulled this out and did a look with this and loved it. Unearthly just does really fun color stories. Their shimmers, they just do right, and I think they just have such a beautiful formula. I still want to reach into this a few more times this year because I want to do something even for like work and then use this shadow all over the lids. It's the shade Haunted Heart. It's kind of one of those like pinky blue shadows. I do love like a pinky blue. Just looks so freaking pretty and princess-like. So I'm still wanting to reach into that. There are definitely some really beautiful like fall looks I feel like that can be created from this. I feel like I kind of missed my opportunity a little bit there. If I am feeling like playing with reds, there's some reds up here. I'm very happy to have this palette and hoping to get a little bit more use out of this before the year ends. Then I have my Bella Beauté Bar Vamp palette. This ranked 11th last year, and honestly, looking at everything, like this is a palette I continue to just think about often to reach for. And this is something when I first saw this launched, I didn't even think that I would reach for it a lot, but I wanted to buy it because it was Bella Beauté Bar. I did a red look with this last year that I just felt like so fierce in, and it makes me like want to reach for reds more. I have reached into Skin of a Killer quite frequently this year as a lid topper. I love that shade. Also the shade Claudia and Daylight Rings for like just like silvery blue fun shades. Ugh. There is something so special about this palette in my opinion, and honestly if I were to rank this again this year, I think that I would rank this even higher this year, just because this is like a palette that even when I'm not doing my makeup, like I think about this palette. I really love this one. And so yes, I'm glad that it's gotten used, and if I were to rank this again, I think I would rank this even higher. All right, we are into the list of 10. And amongst these are palettes that were in the top 10 that have still been used. So my Recently The Influence ranked number 9 last year. And if I were to rank this again, I likely would rank this one also even higher. I've reached this quite a bit this year. The shade Backlash is one of my favorite shadows in my entire collection. I absolutely love this shadow. It's again kind of one of those like aquamarine kind of, oh, it's such a pretty shadow. I almost did not buy this palette. In fact, I bought this a year after it launched, but I saw Brittany Ray swatch this, and just the shifts in the special shades, I was like, I must have this. Again, I'm kind of itching to do something red, and I feel like the shade Fake Famous would be such a fun red to play with. I love that I love the blues and greens, and even these are like fun to play with. I definitely did some looks last year that I really enjoyed. One of the best Bella Beauté Bar palettes in my opinion, and like I said, I would rank this, definitely the next palette I'm going to talk about, I would rank this one even higher if I were to re-rank. Glad that this one has gotten some use. I do have plans to go to 1 or 2 wild hockey games before the end of the year. and this is my go-to shade when there's a wild hockey game. So I anticipate this will still get more use. The Secret Garden palette from Bella Beauté Bar ranked 8th last year, and I still love this. I was trying to work my way through this No Pan Left Behind. Earlier this year, I didn't quite make my way through it, but this is such a beautiful palette. I love, again, the metallics and the shimmers in here. This green down here is such a special green shadow. It is, oh my gosh, it's so smooth and just, it is so impactful on the eyes. I've done a couple of looks using that shadow and filmed with it, and every time I wear it, you guys are asking what I'm wearing and compliment that. I also love this like cool toned pink shade. The shade Serenity is this really, really beautiful pink green shifty shadow that I paired with the Bella Beauté Bar Green Goddess palette earlier this year. That was so pretty. Really great mattes in this palette. I like that we have a row of neutrals if you want to do something neutral. This still would likely rank in the top 10, but I likely would rank this above Secret Garden just because I love Recently De-Influenced. And this one I also just feel like is so special. I might rank this one above this one as well. Ranking 7 last year was my Dieverune Dewdrops palette. This might rank in the top 5 if I were to re-rank. I believe I've reached for this over 10 times this year. I love this cute little 6-pan companion palette. This has gotten so much use and will continue to. Every single shade in here I love. Like, I just think this is such a special palette. Dieverune does special shades so special and so right. And I couldn't stop reaching for this. This sits like on my little cart next to me so that I can use this kind of anytime I want. I love some of the shades in here for an inner corner highlight. The shade Splish is such a beautiful, fun, like silver that I didn't realize I loved so much. But it almost has this like pearlescent, like it's not like a straight silver. It almost has this like pearlescent wet pink shine to it. It's such a special shadow as well. I think I would rank this even higher if I were to re-rank, and this has gotten so much use this year. All right, my Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 6 last year ranked 6th. And this is something that I haven't reached for enough this year for how special this palette is. I absolutely love this. I like that you can mix and match the shades. I love the magnet component to this. I just unfortunately probably would have gotten a lot more use out of this summer, but wasn't really reaching for makeup. I do feel like for football season, I could have a lot more fun with this than I have. Like, there's definitely some good Vikings colors, shades, Viking colored shades in here, although the Vikings suck this year. They're really letting me down. Like, really letting me down. This would still rank highly for me, like still within the top 5 to 10, I think. I just haven't used this enough this year, but it's still gotten use, so that's a plus. Then I have the Adept Flying Fiddles, which ranked 5th last year. This is something I think would still likely rank in the top 10, but likely would fall down a little bit in the ranking. I do still really, really enjoy this. It's just not one of those palettes that I think about as often, although this is something that I definitely could reach for more day to day. And in terms of color story, is really what I'm looking for, maybe a little bit darker and more intense even. But I love the shade Scorpion Grass. That is something that like really sold me last year. It's again, well, it's a marbled shade, but it really is kind of one of those aquamarine type of shades. So pretty. I have reached for this a couple times this year, more towards the beginning of the year. I need to pull this back out again because even like yellowish brown was such a beautiful shade. Any surge for inner corner or everyday, Viola Bronze even for like something everyday. We need to reach for this more. I do think this one would drop just a bit in the ranking though. And then finally, my number 1 and number 2 ranked palettes have both been used this year. Ranked at number 2, I had my Cosmic Beauty Neutrals palette. I still really, really enjoy this palette. This is something that I can easily wear to work. This is something that I think can also, like, you can like really make some fun looks, especially for the summer. This gold shade, Glitz, is such a fun kind of yellow gold. It's so smooth, thin, yet intense on the lids. The shade Luxe is such a beautiful, fun green. It kind of reminds me of the green from the Pat McGrath Bronze Temptation palette. And then there's just some beautiful everyday neutrals in here too. So it really is such a versatile palette. We've got the neutrals, we've got the yellow, the green, the like dusty purple. I did a look last year using like these 4 shades on the bottom that I also thought was so beautiful. So maybe I'd like to recreate that look in the colder weather months, but still love this one. It's gotten use. And then this one hasn't gotten enough use. This is something that I still need to bust out a couple looks, especially as we're in spooky season. But my top ranked palette last year was Bella Beauté Bar Poison Garden, and this still would be a top ranked palette. This color story is so unique. There's so many just truly special, unique shadows in this palette that I just love. I also love cobalt blue, so I love the pop of cobalt. The shade Poison Ivy, oh my god, one of my favorite shades in my entire collection. Such a beautiful wet looking blue brown shade. It's so pretty. Also Opium Poppy and Angel's Trumpet. Here, Angel's Trumpet, Opium Poppy. Oh my gosh, Opium Poppy, like for the summer. Oh, it's like one of those like orange green shifty shadows that looks wet and just so pretty. And then Angel's Trumpet, like, oh my gosh, so beautiful on the lids. This, I absolutely love and adore this palette. I need to reach for this more because this cannot sit and only get like 4 or 5 uses for me. It's such a beautiful palette. Definitely would still rank #1 in my collection. But after that, you guys, those are the 50 palettes that I brought into my collection and kind of where they're at now, what's been decluttered, what hasn't been touched, and the palettes that actually have gotten love and use for me this year. I'd love to know what palettes maybe you brought in last year that you've been neglecting, or have they all gotten a ton of use? Let a girl know in the comments down below. Other than that, thanks so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in tomorrow's video. Bye.